And in fact, as has been commented, there was nothing to vote on because there was no issue at that point for the City Council to vote on. So I just wanted to say those things. I'm not a North Ogden City resident, but I just want to make one further comment that representing North Ogden City as a client has been a very easy thing for me to do, because I find that the caliber of the people that you have elected is very high. They're smart, and it's not hard to get them to follow the law and follow the playbook. In fact, my experience has been not that they're trying to hide things, but that they have gone the extra mile to keep things open in public. But I just have to tell you that there are certain discussions that can't be held in public. And I'm comfortable with that, I can't help it. But from a business sense and from doing the public's business, protecting the taxpayers' scarce resources, it just has to be done. You have to have an element of trust in the people that you've elected. So those are my comments.
Yes. That does apply as long as you're discussing private property. When the city property started to be discussed, we own it. Right? So the minute we got to property number 1, and the city property was discussed, then it should have been open to the public, should have been advertised, should have been open to the public, and should have been an open meeting. Private property is a different situation, Dave, and I've talked with several city attorneys, and I was here for lots and lots of years when Gladwell was here. It's fine to discuss the private property. Nobody wants to dispute that at all. But when the city property came available, is that not correct? When we're talking about city parks, city property, you can't all of a sudden decide without opening it up.
I don't want to get into a debate.
I'm sorry, that's one of the issues I wanted to bring up about the debate. I don't think it was an illegal meeting. I mean, I've been in enough city council meetings. I think it's all just perfectly fine. But when we got to the point, 20 can be discussed. When you get to number 21, if it's a city park up where Martha lives, or a city park where I live, or a city thing that involves one of our city parks, then it's no longer private property. It's now, I own 20,000ths of that piece of land, okay? He owns 1/20,000th of it. It has to be opened up. That stage of the game, the meeting should have been adjourned and should have opened up to the public for discussion of that piece of property.
I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into a debate about that. But the fact is that the only discussion of the city's property was in regard to, we had a discussion, should say the City Council had a discussion about a number of different properties that the city could make an offer to purchase. And the only way that the city's property was involved, and that was the purpose for the closed meeting, was to talk about all of these properties that had been identified and what were the pluses and minuses, and what was the cost to the city, the potential cost to the city. The reason that the city, the only reason that the city's property came into discussion was because you own it, and one option is not to purchase anything, and that's the only way that it came into discussion was, should we make an offer on any of these properties, or should we just keep the property that we have? And so, again, I have to say that there was nothing illegal or inappropriate about that meeting. As legal counsel for the city, I'll stake my reputation on that.
Got to get it done, deal.
We'll have a response now from the City Council. Mr. Carlson, I appreciate your remarks. Let me kind of start out, I guess. First of all, we need a new public works facility. The one we have is unsafe. It's not adequate for taking care of our city infrastructure in the way that we need to take care of it. So that's the first thing. We did not want to approach this in a shotgun or a scattershot manner. So last year we undertook with Laylock and Partners a professional study called a program study. And during that study then, we looked at all of the operations that are occurring within our public works facility. We looked at what we were doing now, what we're going to have to do in the future, and looked at all of our equipment, our buildings, our personnel, and made projections. And Blaylock and partners then came up with the type of facility that we need to go ahead with. And that turned out to be a site of course, we had different configurations, but whether it be square, whether it be rectangular, we needed, according to the study, 4.5 to 5 acres. I made the decision that it would be at least 5 acres. And every parcel we looked at was actually greater than 5 acres. I think all of us know that as we go into the future, we always wish we'd look back and wish we'd done a little bit more or had a little bit more. So rather than try and go with the minimum, we decided we'd go with 5 acres. So that was what we looked at first of all. We looked around the city. There were a number of sites around the city that were 5 acres or greater. We picked some of those and put them on a short list. All of them but one were privately owned. The one is the city-owned parcel up in your neighborhood. We went through a series of meetings with Mr. Berube, alluded to the fact that he talked about the fact that we've had agenda items. We have had. And if people were coming to our meetings, they would have understood what was going on. During our budget meeting, our budget retreat, the Public Works building was referred to no less than 13 times during the discussion, and there was a lot of discussion by the City Council during that particular meeting. So we knew we needed a new facility. We knew we needed some ground to put it on. We had some sites that we were looking at. We had to go through a process of negotiating with landowners, which we did. And this is kind of where I think we're having a problem with each other. As we talked about those various parcels, there were various reasons why we could not acquire them. And it was not, as I say, we met in public or in private, or excuse me, in closed session to discuss the purchase of real property. As we did that, it was a process of elimination more than anything else. As we discussed a property, if it was not available, then we went to the next one. If it was not available, we went to the next one. And we finally went through that process of elimination until we got to the site that the city owns. And we had looked at it and done some preliminary overlays and that sort of thing. It was big enough for what we needed. We decided we'd go ahead and use our city-owned property. That's I guess at the point. So we're at the very beginning of this process, and I was very concerned, as were members of our committee, as were the city council, very concerned about letting folks know. We needed to start to study the sites in more detail. I did not want to have surveyors and drill rigs and that sort of thing up on that site without the neighborhood knowing what was going on. That's why I decided, in conjunction with the committee, that we wanted to get the neighborhood involved at the very earliest moment. This was the very earliest moment to get the neighborhood involved. I sent a letter out. It was critical that we retain the services of an architect, because we had to have some definitive cost data so that we could look at acquiring bonds. We are going to have to bond for this facility if we build it. And that's a whole nother process, is going through the bonding process. There will be public hearings, all that sort of thing will occur. But we had to retain an architect right off the bat. And so, when we wanted to do that, so that we could take advantage of some bonding opportunities that will expire at the end of this year. So we knew that we were going to have to do some things in a hurry. But from my aspect, from my standpoint, we involved the community just as very soon as we could. There were